Come with me back out to the workshop for another Dave's Diary update. I just had to shoot in to grab the camera because I'd forgotten I'd taken it inside. I have gone down to the engineer's supply store and they were kind of helpful. They too were a bit perplexed by my requests, and I purchased the longer, the 1 meter rule, and I had to find one that was etched, and this one turns out to be very lightly etched and was $24. The next one up that was etched nicely was $122. That's why I bought this one, because I was mentioning before about the sunk costs of is this money going to be seen as good investment, or is it a sunk cost? Well, I think that's the term I'm using. So there, it's literally you've sunk it into the project, and it could become a loss. So if it doesn't work, I'm doing everything I can to make it work. So anyway, I got the 1 meter rule. It's got a light etching to it. I tried to explain to them what I was doing. They got the drift, but it wasn't an extensively stocked. It's a good company. It's been around for donkey's years. And while I was there, I also got a brand new center punch to use in my efforts. It does actually locate reasonably well in the very fine, sharp center mark that I used with the optical center punch. I then proceeded to etch, and I highlighted with the Sharpie marker just to see how nice it looks. It's reasonable. There is some issue that when and how you hit will move the center mark slightly. The steel will deform in a particular way, so it's tiny, but you really want to make sure it's moving, in this case backwards and forwards, can't speak, this way and not this way. Anyway, I have marked, center popped, center marked, hit thingy, and drilled to 13 millimeters. Then I got my non-starting 14x1 tap and got it started, and believe it or not, it actually didn't do too bad a job. It's not a fine, the cleanliness of the threads isn't that great, and I'd like to have a tiny little deburring tool, wire brush sort of thing go down there, but I've just tried it, and that's why I ran inside. No, I didn't. I meandered inside. Get the camera. They fit. Not too bad. Thank you very much. In fact, let's just have a look. Whoa, that thread isn't too bad, because quite often when you cut the thread, there is a little bit of intolerance, but 13 millimeter hole, 14x1 thread, and this 10 mil bar, they don't stick through. We have at least got a thumbs up for this stage. I have to make sure that the next threaded hole and the next and the next and the next are as accurate as I can get, and that's why I was making the mention that we need to be able to use a running measurement. So we start there and we keep on marking without moving the rule, so that our marks are as accurate as possible. We can't use like a set of dividers where you can scribe the marks, each one. That's an accumulative mark, you could say. Definitely not a good idea. I don't know why anyone would do that. I'm not going to, but I am still a little bit nervous about getting the accuracies, and I'm trying to use all the tools and my limited knowledge that I have at hand to give me the best chance of getting it correct. So optical center punch, diamond tip etching tool, Scribe, a brand new center punch, meter long steel rule. No, it's not an engineer's rule. Well, it is, but it's a cheap-ish rule. But it is 1 meter. Gives me the chance, at least, of getting the marks more and more accurate. The lines are very fine, so that's nice, so I can align them. As I was saying, you might not be able to see them anymore, but the lines that the scribes or etches into the steel is very, very fine. It's actually nice to see. You probably can see it in the screen, but it's just pleasing. All these things working well together. The big plus was brand new drill bits that I've got out, and I'm putting them back in there, so I'll make sure I only use those. This is not so brand new, but that's the 13mm bit. But I think the saving grace, I was watching John Hines the other day, and he was making I don't know how long ago the video was made, but he was making a whole series of holes in this tool that he's making, a clamp sort of gizmo thing, and he was making it out of steel and aluminium. And he was saying about, and he does the tapping exactly the same way as I do, and that's just by putting the bit, the tap, in the chuck, and then winding it, starting it by hand. And as it turns out, and it was a bit of a late realization, the chuck key, the handle is actually the right size, so you get a little bit more leverage, and that actually made it really, really nice. He was saying about he took virtually a half a day or all day or something to do all the holes that he had to do, and I was thinking, yeah, I hear your pain there, brother. But also the threads that he was using probably were a little bit more bitey into the metal, whereas this one, being such a fine thread, there's a lot of threads, but being such a fine thread, it's only biting in to each side of the hole by 0.5 millimeter, meaning that the load isn't that great. And I did notice it because I've done the tapping like this many times, and there is a bit of oomping required to spin the chuck, but this time it didn't seem to be as hard. And late to the party as usual, using the end of the chuck key to go into the hole in the chuck gave me that added advantage of leverage. So, end of the day, if I can get all of the holes drilled accurately, and they are that, I'm not going to say buttery smooth, but they have bugger all play in it. It's actually not a bad thread, that. It bodes well with making this approach to making the 3-4-5 method. It bodes well for it, for success. That is all predicated on the fact of being able to transfer the mark from the rule onto the steel accurately. I'm contemplating whether I hold by way of magnet. Let's just go have a look. I think I know where. I think I might know where there's a wee magnet. Yes, there is a tiny little magnet. I've lost my bigger one. I don't know where the heck it went. I've been using it in the workshop somewhere, and I normally use it to solidly locate my my rip fence. And I know I can remember using it, and then it disappeared. I've turned the garage upside down looking for the damn thing. Anyway, couldn't find it. The gremlins have got it. Anyway, I'll pull the office. You can't see this because I'm doing it by one hand. The thoughts are, this is a switchable magnet, not very strong, but if I put the magnet there and the rule there, It's stainless steel, but I think it's called ferritic stainless, and it's got a very light magnetic attraction. If I put the magnet like that, I can then etch down the mark onto the steel. That's my thought, to do that. Being able to do it on each place, yeah, I've got a feeling it's going to be more onerous than my idea suggests, because okay, so I'm just thinking out loud. Can we position the rule at the mark and move it along to the next one, the magnet holding it in the correct position? Wished it was a bit stronger. Let's just try it a different way, because depending on what it is, the surface area, yeah, that's got a fair bit of grit. Yeah, it's not that strong. Damn. But I was thinking, if I could, I'd have to prop the rule up to the correct amount. But by doing that and aligning the very edge of the rule and the square, I can then move it along. Is etching better, or is this way better? Well, it's going to be etched, but because the idea there is also, if that's down hard on the steel, I can run the tip of that down the etching of the rule onto the steel, mark it. But I then really need to... can I actually... You can hear all the indecisions, can't you? Because I'm doubting myself for good reason. If I did this, I'll just put a little mark there and there, and I made my ink on that area, and I'll do this for all of the positions. If I come in, locate my scribe on the mark on the rule, you see it's on a bit of a bloody angle, don't like that. Yeah, and the rule is movable, so not so good, but I can get my tip in the etching of the... Yeah, it's actually not that doesn't work, it's that it's doing each one incrementally, like additionally. Still lots of pause and thoughts there, isn't there? I'd thought about that, but as you drop off the edge of the rule, you're in space, and you might move. I've got a feeling, and this is how I sometimes do my woodworking type thing, it would be better to try and align visually that mark. It can be located with the magnet or a clamp or something, and as I go along, line it perfectly. I've got the double point on the rule there. Mark it that way, because if let's just, again, you're putting up with all my umming and ahhings. So if I did, if I put the magnet in place, I can then use that as my reference to butt my rule up to, and then even if I mark, remove, scribe, put it back on, the rule is going to be in the same place, because it's only going to be buttoned up against that magnet. It can't go anywhere else. So I'm not pushing on it too hard. It's just a reference. Do the next one. Make sure the rule's up against the magnet. Etch it. Scratch it. Do the next one. etc., etc. It doesn't settle well with me, but my idea of using the etching lines for this, oops, sorry, pointing, bad production value there. Pointing camera in right direction, David. Okay. Yes, that does locate well there, but it's hard to mark. If I put a small drill at that point, can I use the tip in those points to give me the arch? I could just do a little bit of a movement like that. What say I drill the lesser rule in the manner I just mentioned and see whether the damn thing works. You can soon eyeball the whether the lines line up with the, or the holes line up with the lines, because optically you actually do pick up the discrepancy. Physically, like measuring them, it might be difficult, but you can actually see whether it works or not. So yeah, that one's more like printed than etched. This one, you can hear it's etched here. I don't know. Hang on, let's just you've put up with me for 16 minutes so far. Is it? Oh, it's so fine you could fall out. This one, it does actually physically locate quite well. So I wonder whether just by putting them at that very point there, do a bit of a center punch, drill it with a very fine tip, I can then work out which size drill would allow that tip to go through to allow for the etching. And if that worked on my trial piece, then come over, put my center marks here with the optical punch, center pop marks, and drill those as well. That might work. No, I'll reword that. That might be worth a go, because if it does work, it will make life a little bit more logical. That's what I was actually saying to it was actually a young woman at the engineers supply, and I know I've chatted to her before, and she's very knowledgeable. And I was just making the comment that I'm a builder, not a metalworking engineer sort of person. So it's almost like I'm doing an apprenticeship in this area, but without supervision, which is always dangerous, because you go off with these good ideas and they bite you in the backside, and it can be costly. It's interesting. As I said, my friend who is the engineer, he died 18 months ago, and he was a great source for, like if a machine breaks down in the middle of the night, he has to get up and go and fix it so that the production can carry on. And he said you come up with all sorts of workarounds and ideas out of necessity. And don't have him to draw on the information on, because he would have a way of sorting this out. This is fine engineering, I suppose. Certainly outside my prior knowledge, but I've been around engineers, but not. It's one thing for being around them. It's another thing to be able to do what they do. Yeah. Okay. Cup of tea time. It's almost tea time for me. So anyway, cup of tea time, and then I'll get back to you, perhaps with some holes in a rule. How hard can that steel be? Is it stainless? How hard's the stainless? Have I got to drip? All those questions. Rightio, I'm off. See you later now. Bye.